Hi, I'm Jamie Machek, Education Consultant with the Wisconsin Valley Library Service. Summer is almost here, and with that brings summer library programs. I thought this would be an ideal time to talk about taking better photos, especially photos on our phones. Most of us are likely doing this already because photo quality on our phones is much better than it was years ago, and they are relatively easy to manage. Let's talk about some tips. Before we get into the tips, I want to make sure that your library is able to take photos. Do you have permission to take photos at library events? So this could be in the form of a waiver that people sign before you have an event, or maybe you have a sign posted that photos will be taken and posted. So make sure you are covered. And of course, if any caregiver does not want photos of children being posted to social media or your library's website, we want to respect that. The first tip is what I call very obvious tips. Sometimes photos come up quickly. The opportunity to take one comes up fast. So is your camera icon on your phone easy to find? Is it on your first screen? You don't want to be digging for that camera icon. Also, you won't take the best photos if the lens is not clean. Make sure you periodically clean the lens with a cloth or paper towel. Number 2, it's fairly common knowledge that photos with faces get more engagement. And whenever you can, try to get photos more up close of people's faces. It just makes that story or that experience come alive. You need to know your setup. The photos you take in your library meeting room for story time at 10 a.m. when it's bright and maybe sunny are going to look different when you take photos at an evening program at 6 p.m. when it might be dark. So keep in mind the time of the day when you take a photo. Also, where will you be in the room? Will you be sitting off to the side? Will you be up close? Is this something that you can practice or set up ahead of time? A lot of smartphone photos turn out blurry, and you can buy a basic tripod for as little as $20. I do think they are worth the investment. If you or your library does not have a tripod, you can put your elbows on a table to create your own tripod. If you're outside, is there something you can lean against, like a building or a tree, to help steady yourself? You've likely heard of this guideline for capturing balance on photos. The rule of thirds is meant to create a stronger image. You divide the image into thirds and place the subject on one of those sides, not in the center. We don't have to use this every time, but this can help create a stronger image. And most phones have a camera grid that you can turn on to help with this. So in a smartphone, your camera sensor, and this is what is used to capture the light, is usually smaller than a regular camera. And what does this mean? It means that it's hard to capture good photos in dim lighting. And this is where windows or natural lighting can help. I would avoid the flash on a camera whenever possible. If you are outside, bright sun is not your friend. So if you can, try to stand in the shade or use shade. And we never want to take photos looking directly into the sun. Number 7, use HDR or high dynamic range. This feature can be found on most phones. And HDR means showing a high contrast between the lightest and darkest parts of an image. So when we use this feature that we can simply turn on and off, it will show better detail. The photo that you see on the screen is likely not using HDR. However, if you were taking action shots, HDR is not the best for this. Number 8, Zoom is okay on our phones. It has gotten better, but I prefer to use my body or to physically get closer to a subject. And again, with people, we want to be careful that we have that permission to do that. To get great photos of kids or pets, get down at their level. So squat or kneel on the floor if you can to get those closer up photos and or facial expressions. On the flip side, sometimes if we're in a crowd, we might need to get up or get higher. How do we get taller when we're taking photos? We can use a step stool, a chair, or if we have a ladder handy, that can be used as well. We want to make sure to look around and see what is going on around us. Sometimes the best photos are not of what's happening directly in front of us, but an audience reaction. So think of kids laughing or maybe an adult wiping a tear. These images can be so powerful for library marketing purposes. So don't be afraid to necessarily turn around or look around the room to capture some great photos. Repetitive patterns are very pleasing to the eye, and they appear when strong graphic elements are repeated over and over again. So like lines, geometric shapes, forms, and colors. And these photos can also make a strong visual impact. There are tons of great photo editing apps that can be used for free. On your screen are 4 of my favorite. I use Canva quite a bit, as well as Snapseed, Be Funky, and Foodie, especially if I'm taking pictures of food. And finally, less is more. We don't want to overdo it or rely on it. So the photo of me on the left is raw and untouched, and the photo on the right is one that is heavily touched up. This is not a good example of photo editing, and I don't recommend this. Also, with cropping, be careful of distortion. You want to make sure you're not distorting the photo. And remember, a bad photo is likely going to be a bad photo. We need to take other steps. So preparing, using the natural lighting, doing the things that we can do beforehand to get the good photo. Those are the tips on taking better photos. Hopefully you found this Digital Byte helpful. If you have ideas for a future Digital Byte, please let me know. Thank you and have a great day.